What is a true fact so baffling, it should be false? There is a 1 in roughly 5.2 to the 61st power chance that, if you were to slap a table, all of the molecules in your hand in the table would miss each other, and your hand would go through it. Story time. I learned this fact from a deep intellectual conversation with my engineering class 2 years ago, so there very well could be some kind of detail I'm missing here, but nonetheless, what I said is theoretically true. Giant squids have a donut-shaped brain, so their esophagus can run through the middle. If they try to swallow too large a bite of food, they can get brain damage. The youngest mother to give birth became pregnant at 4 years old. Every day that you go to work you pass more people than an average medieval person did in their entire life. The gravity of black holes is so great that it literally bends light around the black hole, so that if you could somehow stand close enough to a black hole and look straight ahead, you would actually see the back of your own head. A morbidly obese person can survive with absolute starvation without any sickness or feeling ill, under close control. There have been studies since 60s. There is a patient in 1973 who went under a 382-day starvation diet for therapeutic purposes under close control with only vitamin and mineral supplements and water intake without protein, carbohydrate or fat intake, no food at all. Dropped from 207 kilograms to 88 kilograms and maintained it. After a follow-up checkup 5 years later, the patient was 96 kilograms, stabilized. Prolonged fasting had no ill effects. If anybody is curious about the article, the PubMed ID is PMC 2,495,396. Giraffe seat bones. TASER is actually an acronym for Thomas A. Swift's electric rifle, TASER. Switzerland has accidentally invaded Liechtenstein thrice in the last 50 years. On the first time in 1976, Swiss military got lost and ended up in Liechtenstein, so the Liechtensteiners offered them drinks like proper hosts. On the second time in 1992, Swiss military forgot that a certain observation post was actually not in Swiss territory, but in Liechtenstein territory, so they just said sorry and forgot about it. Then again in 2007, the Swiss army got lost and entered Liechtenstein, but eventually realized they weren't in Switzerland anymore. Toto. So they turned back. Liechtenstein didn't even know this happened till the Swiss apologized again, to which they basically said, no problem, bro. The color orange is named after the fruit. Before, the color orange was called red. This is why people with orange hair are called redheads. From 1613 and 1620 a samurai traveled to Rome by way of Mexico. During this time, Shakespeare was still alive. Virginia had been founded for around a decade. Galileo was accused of heresy, and Pocahontas arrived in England. He met the Pope. He was made a Roman citizen. His name was Hasekura Tsuneniga, and was the last Japanese person to officially visit Europe until around 1860. He record for most children born to one mother is 69. To the wife of Fyodor Vasiliev, B 1707 C 1782, a peasant from Shuya, Russia. In 27 labors, she gave birth to 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets and 4 sets of quadruplets. Edit. Wife name is Valentina Vasilieva. If sound could travel through space, the roar of the sun would be deafening, even though it's 93 miles away. Kilkenny, Ireland, gave birth to twins Amy Ann and Kate Mary, Katie Elliott 87 days apart, making them the twins with the longest interval between their births. The twins were born at Waterford Regional Hospital. Amy was born prematurely on the 1st of June 2012 and Kate followed on the 27th of August. Guinness World Records. Cheetahs can't roar, but they can meow like house cats. Whoa, is this legit? Googling now. Edit. This has been the cutest part of my day. There is an extremely rare condition called stone man syndrome. It causes any smallest damage done to tissue to regrow into a bone. Speaking briefly, people affected by this sickness slowly turn into living statues as they get older. If you earned $1 every second, it would take 2,921 years to have more money than Bill Gates. We live many times closer to the last dinosaur than the first and last dinosaur did to each other, and Cleopatra lived closer to the first man on the moon than to the time the pyramids were built. If every single person on the entire planet took part in a rock paper scissors contest, where everyone paired up and played, losers were knocked out, and winners stayed on etc., you would only have to win 33 times in a row to beat all 7.53 billion people on the planet. When Mount Everest was first measured, it was exactly 29,000 feet. It was reported as 29,002 because exactly 29,000 was not believable. I'm picturing someone standing at the bottom with a tape measure and someone running all the way up with the other end. To scale, the distance between a nucleus and orbiting electron is 16 times longer than the distance between the Sun and Pluto. There's a universe inside us. Harvard didn't teach classes in calculus when it was founded because it wasn't discovered yet. Oxford University predates the Aztec Empire by over 200 years. And, for fun, one of my favorites, woolly mammoths were still around at the time the Great Pyramids in Giza were built. There is no good metric for the number of languages on Earth. This is mostly because linguists cannot agree on what constitutes a new language and what constitutes a dialect of an existing language. The best current metric of how many languages exist is the number of translations of the Christian Bible. Even if 99% of the Earth's population thought you were unattractive, 76 million people would still find you attractive. We are all colorblind and lying to each other about it. Because everyone has a different amount of rods and cones in their retina, no person on Earth sees the exact same color. We all just agree on a certain name, which can cause interesting anomalies. For example, some cultures collectively agree that blue and green are the same color. Japan is a good example, or a whole ethnic group will straight up just not have a name for a whole color range. In fact, as humans we seem to be evolving to see more colors. Across the entire world, the first described colors seem to be white and black, followed by red. From there it's yellow and green. Then way down the line blue comes along. The entire world didn't even know the color blue existed for a long time. Older stories, like Homer's The Odyssey level of old, go into incredible detail about clothes, facial features, animals, armor, etc. But the ocean is just described as wine dark and that's it. Wine is not blue. The life of Frane Selleck, the luckiest unlucky man in the world. January 1962. Frane is riding on a train through a freezing canyon when it fell into an icy river. All 17 other passengers died while he escapes with a broken arm and hypothermia. 1963. On his first plane trip he was sucked out of the plane's door and landed in a haystack. Unscathed, 19 other people were killed in the crash. 1966. He was riding in a bus when it skidded off the road into yet another icy river. 4 passengers drowned while he only received some minor cuts and bruises. 1970. His car's engine burst into flames while he was driving, but he managed to escape before it exploded. 1973. In yet another driving incident, his car's engine was doused with hot oil from a broken fuel pump. This caused flames to shoot through the air vents, singing off all of his hair. He was otherwise unharmed. 1995. He was hit by a bus, but only sustained minor injuries. 1996. To escape a head-on collision with a United Nations truck on a mountain curve, he swerved into a guardrail that broke on impact to save himself. He jumped out of his car's open door and grabbed onto a tree branch as he watched his car plummet off the cliff. Suffice to say, the guy had a complicated relationship with the Grim Reaper. More people died making the V2 rockets during WW2 than were killed by them. Another fun fact about V2 rockets. Germany was facing a large issue with rocket fuel shortages during the project because people kept drinking it. The fuel was made from 70% ethyl alcohol and 30% water, distilled from potatoes. It was the most economically viable fuel at the time, since they were already very low on other fuels. To stop workers from drinking it, they denatured the alcohol, essentially poisoning it, but people kept drinking it anyways, and getting extremely ill. This simply caused people to start leaving the V2 program, suggesting that they were only in it for the free alcohol. This also means that any alcohol over 70% ABV is stronger than actual WW2 rocket fuel. Its fail rate is over 80%. I personally know someone who in his carry-on accidentally packed a loaded handgun, made it on the plane, and was so freaked out when he landed, he upsteered back home and took a Greyhound bus after his trip. Sharks evolved before trees did. Trees evolved before the bugs responsible for rotting, that is bacteria which could eat lignin and cellulose, did. Thus when they died, they just fell over in place and lay there instead of rotting. Over time the weight of the upper layers of tree corpses compacted the lower levels, which eventually became the coal we dig up and use today. There was this French guy named Terror in the late 1700s that could eat anything, in any amount. He was able to eat a quarter of a cow in one day and ate dinner for 15 for one meal when he was being tested. He was even able to swallow an entire eel, with bones included, without hesitating. When he went to the military service, they used him as message transport, but after being captured he went back and tried to find a cure. In the hospital where he was staying, he was suspected of eating a baby, so they kicked him out. He was average weight, and when he died a few years later they could see inside his stomach just by opening his mouth. Here's a video which explains it on better detail. A 500-pound cigarette smoking, beer drinking brown bear named Wojtek was enlisted and served in the Polish army during WWII. Private Wojtek helped the Polish win the brutal Battle of Mont Cassino and was even promoted to corporal. Following the war, he retired in Scotland. Amazing share. I will name my firstborn son Wojtek. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. New videos every day. Check out our playlist.